I saw Backrooms last night with my girl and another couple, and this film made me think the most out of any film that I've seen in probably over a decade. I think it's different from a film like Inception. They're both visually confusing, but with a film like Inception, if you're paying attention to the plot points and the things that are telling you, what's happening is not very confusing. The visuals are confusing, but what's actually happening in the film, I feel like was not that confusing, which is why, spoiler alert, if you haven't seen Inception already, Leonardo DiCaprio is in fact not in a dream at the end. They very much are telling you that that is not what is happening. But in a film like this, I wouldn't even really call this or categorize this as like a thriller or like a cerebral thriller or horror or things like that. I would more say this is like a art piece that is a study of the human mind, is how I would describe the film. So if you're looking at it in that way to where, yeah, they're explaining some concepts, you have an idea, which I think plays into the film, which I'll get into later. But I think you have an idea of what's going on, and it is up to you to take it upon yourself, like it would be with a very good, like, thought-provoking art piece to determine what you see and what's happening, how you feel about what's happening, and the characters therein. I was speechless at the theater, just thinking about or trying to wrap my head around what am I seeing? What happened? Great acting all the way through. We got Chiwetel Ejiofor, and then we also have Renata Reinsva. Two names a little hard to pronounce, so I hope I pronounced them correctly. But this film, by the way, this is going to be spoiler alerts. So if you haven't seen it, I'll see you later. But this film just starts off with this guy. I believe his name is Clark, and he works at a furniture store. Long story short, he's not divorced. He's separated from his wife. She kicked him out the house, and he's going to see a therapist who is Renata's character. That's his therapist. And they go through things. They have these discussions. They actually have a really good scene where they're role playing. She's playing his wife and he's playing himself. And you're seeing that he doesn't really take accountability because he's yelling and saying all this stuff about like, well, if you would get off your ass and do this and blah, 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 blah. In the bottom of the furniture store, which he manages or owns, it's not quite clear, but it's going under. That is very clear. The lights are flickering. And eventually through like, an electrician, and the fact that he's actually sleeping there, he comes to find out that in the bottom there is like a breaker that there's two extra lights on. And in the middle of the night when he flips those things down, I'm fast forwarding a lot right now to get some things I want to talk about. There's a little slit of light that he can see. And when he walks into it, that's how we get to the back room. Now, the back room is such an interesting space. I heard the lore about how it's based off of a Reddit post and stuff like that. And I believe the director just took that concept and then put it into a movie. But the space itself, I actually have to thank my girlfriend for this, like, how my thought process got developed. Because at first, I thought the space was like an amalgamation of everyone's mind. The next morning we were talking about it and she was like, I feel like it was his mind, like it was a reflection of the store, but through his mind, which is why there was furniture everywhere, and things like that. And the more I was thinking about the film, the more I was like, well, maybe it is. Because even with the two, or I should say the three monster-like characters that we see that aren't Clark's monster character, he describes when he has, I'm kind of jumping all over the place right here because I want to get to a couple key scenes. All right, so I'll just move around those. I don't want to get to the scene to where like the two teenagers go in there with them or however old they are and they get mopped up. Like, I mean, it's whatever. The scene later on where eventually the therapist comes in and then he ends up capturing her, the real Clark, because he says, it's just me. This is for your own good. Clearly his mind has broken because he's been in the back room for a long time. But I want to get to that scene where it's him and the therapist sitting at the table and they're replaying that role play scene from the beginning of the film. And then he ultimately says, I don't want to change. And I think this is a key point here in the film because you not only learn that he is crazy, but the film is also telling you that this woman is also emotionally unstable. She's not mentally well either. And I think that you see that through her flashbacks because clearly she might be genetically predisposed to mental health. We never find out what her mom's condition is. But just going through that trauma as a child, even if she wasn't genetically predisposed to whatever mental illness her mother had, she was not set up well. And then you see that she's mentally unwell. She's popping a pill at the little thing that they had, the little gathering that they were having. She is very lonely in her home. In the same way in which Clark says maybe he deserves to be alone, which I thought was an interesting point. Is that she says to him in their first therapy session, do you think anyone deserves to be alone? And he was like, I don't know. But she is also alone. She has friends, it seems like. She has a social life, it seems like. But every night, just like Clark, she is alone. I thought that was interesting. Tell me what y'all think about that. But back to the scene that I was focusing on, where they do the role play. She ends up saying in that scene, I don't know what the fuck to tell you. You don't take accountability for anything. And that right there told me that it's either that she had a codependency on Clark, because it seems in the scene when she was at home eating by herself late at night and she saw her own commercial come on that she was very dissatisfied with it, very dissatisfied with her business, it seems like. So maybe she has a codependency on Clark because maybe she really doesn't have that many clients. Maybe Clark is one of her only clients. So she could have helped him with this problem a long time ago, but she wants him to keep coming back. That feeds into the main theme of the movie, which is loops. It is a loop that she can't get out of. Meeting with Clark, doing the role play over and over, even though she knows what to tell him, which is that he cannot take accountability because she says it flat out during that last conversation. You're telling me she didn't know that beforehand? She did. But she is also in a loop, just like Clark's in that loop of drinking, sleeping, waking up, doing all this stuff, drinking, sleeping, checking on his wife to see if she's still in the house, all of these things. The reason why I'm focusing on this scene is I think that's a core theme of this art piece, this cerebral art piece that I'm calling this film, is that the loops that we put ourselves in life ultimately are a disservice to our mental health. That it was an extreme version in the film, but that was the biggest theme that I pulled out of it for myself. What is my routine? What am I doing on a daily basis? How have I allowed myself to fall into a loop that is harming myself? And that doesn't just mean that it's like a negative loop of drug abuse or alcohol abuse like it is in the film, but it could be becoming too comfortable in your routine. It could be not expanding yourself into areas in which you know you would be successful. He keeps shouting, I should be an architect. I should be an architect. I should be an architect. But he never gives a good reason why he cannot be an architect. He says someone has to make money around here. I'm pretty sure you would make more money as an architect than you would be as a manager at a furniture store. And the way that the film portrays it, or how Clark portrays it, is that he is ready to be an architect right now. So go be an architect. You would make way more money. But once again, he is a loop. He is in a loop of no accountability towards himself or towards others. And I think that was the best part of the best theme of the film, for me anyways, was the whole concept of the looping. I'm not going to go into the details of the monsters and what exactly they represent because he kind of alluded to it in that same dinner table scene, which is where I feel like we get the majority or the most information about this place is actually not when she gets captured at the end and ends up with the scientist or whatever, but it is that scene at the table where he's explaining, because he's been there for so long, that these things are like fractured memories of people that have been there. And this is where my girlfriend, that's why y'all boys gotta have a smart girl around, all right? Because she gonna keep you right. Because my girlfriend said like people in the store. That makes sense. Like that woman that was in the corner that had the three faces, that might be his wife, it might not, or it might be a fractured memory of his wife that he had. Because if you notice, the woman's dressed in kind of a more professional corporate attire, and he alludes to her being in law school. That's what I'm. She also had red hair in the photo that they showed. The old man, I'm not sure. The boy in the wheelchair or the man in the wheelchair, I'm not sure which one. Not sure about that. But I don't think that's the point. I think that when it's these loops, because even he talks about maybe this person came to the store once, maybe they came to the store a bunch of times. Loops. You know what I'm saying? And him accepting that he doesn't want to change, I think is a very critical moment, not only in the film, but for us as an audience. Because if you're trying to take something from the film, which with a film like this is kind of asking you to, you don't have to. You could be like, oh, it was a fun, weird film. I don't care. And I'm just moving on. But if you're trying to take something from the film, it would be that like therapy is incredibly helpful. Would never take anything away from that. But she says, I can't help you because you don't want to change. And I think that a lot of us go to therapy. I think a lot of us reach out, almost faking as though we want help. But when we're alone, which, the therapist is alone a lot of the time, Clark is alone a lot of the time. When we're alone, That's when we find out if we actually want help or not. Are we willing to do the things that we could do, putting down the bottle, opening the window, which was her whole thing about, her book that she wrote, and he was listening to the tapes in his car. He's listening to these tapes on repeat, but he's changing nothing. How many self-help books are you listening to and changing nothing? How many times are you saying that I need to lose weight, but I can't because of this, I can't because of that, or I want to gain more intelligence or be more well spoken, but I can't because of this or because of that? When there are things that are clearly in front of you that you could change, but you're stuck in that loop. And for me, that was probably the biggest thing out of the film, because I was like, dang, like, how many loops am I in? And I think that that's the scariest thing about the film. Yeah, there's some good jump scares and the rooms were crazy and the dude getting pulled. Like, the film, as just as a film in itself, if you're not trying to take anything deeper out of it, I still think it's worth your time to go see it, because it was just enjoyable. The weirdness of it all. It's a good film. Everybody had a good time. The whole group I was with, my girl and the other couple that we went with, we ended up going getting food after and talking about it and discussing it. It was a good film to go to. But if you're actually trying to pull something out of it, I think that's the main part to focus on if you go see it yourself, and think about like loops. Because even when I got home, I'm writing down like, what does my day actually look like on a day-to-day basis? Like, what am I actually doing? And is it just repeating over and over? And is that beneficial? Do I need to break out? That's why I said that this film made me think more than any film I've had in a long time. Because I mean, there hasn't been a film that I can remember in recent memory, even close, that has forced me through the merits of the film to look at myself and actually take a concept from the film and obviously pare it down, because there ain't no backrooms in here, at least I hope not, and apply it to my life in a way that's meaningful and that makes me think. And that is why I think it is fantastic that they don't explain anything at the end, that it's never explained exactly what the room is, exactly what's going on. Because I do think that, it was an MRI company and everything like that. I do think that it has something to do with the mind and the layers of the mind, which is why that back room seemed as though it was infinite. I could be wrong about that. But I think if they layered everything out, just laid it out for you, this is what's happening, this is why it's happening. Even the people there say, we don't know why it's happening, we don't know why all these doors are opening up, like, all that kind of stuff. I think that actually is a positive for the film. And one thing y'all learn about me, if you don't know already, is that I hate cliffhanger endings in films. I hate like a hard stop on a film right before information. But I feel like in a film like this, where it's more of a art piece and it's asking you to do some legwork in your brain, really pull yourself or push yourself to be like, what is going on? What am I seeing? If that's what you want. If you just want to mindlessly watch the film, you can do that too. But I like to take it a little bit further, especially when the film is presenting a concept that gives me the space to go a little bit further. Because I feel like a lot of films now, they say they're high concept, they say like, oh, this is the most cerebral thriller, blah, 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 blah. But it's really the same plot lines that we've seen repeated over and over and over and over again. So you're really just relying on your subconscious backlog memory of plot lines that you've seen 1,000 times over, which is why a lot of these films feel as though they're falling flat on you, because they're not even executing the concept in a good way. Like, you've already seen this concept, but better. And I don't think that that's the case with Backrooms. So this isn't a review. I just thought it was so interesting, the concept of loops, because that is actually a super terrifying concept that affects everyone, getting caught in loops and not being able to break out of them, and it controlling your life because you cannot get out of those loops. Our main character shows that, Clark. I think the therapist character, she shows that, like the detrimental effects of being stuck in a loop in your life. Even the scientist character, I didn't really get him as much. They showed a brief scene of him with his kids, and they had they panned to a little thing of like a 1.2 million or 1.2 billion dollar grant or something like that, but it flashed too quick on the screen. I couldn't read it. So I'm sure that gives us more context into what's going on with the company. Regardless, I feel like I need to see this film again. I was probably pretty scattershot with my thoughts, so I apologize. Y'all give me y'all opinion on how you felt about the film, but I just thought this is like a really thought-provoking film. Like, incredibly so. Tell me if any of the concepts were hitting home for you. Tell me your theories or things that you've seen on what's really going on in the space. I didn't touch so much on like the individual plot points, because I thought the concepts were more of the interesting part for me than just like the beat to beat what was happening in the film. So let me know what y'all thought, and I'll see y'all later.